Hello, friends. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you wherever you are. I am Mrs. Deveter, and I am so glad that you're here today. I know it's been a while, but I'm here, and I'm so happy that you are as well. For those of you who are watching for the very first time, my name is Deveter Brown, and I talk about all things crochet and life. Today is a very, very special episode of Mrs. DeVito's Live, where I'll be talking to a very, very important person in my life. He is my cousin. We had the opportunity of chatting a couple of weeks ago, and I thought it would be really important to come and share with you all today. We were chatting specifically about domestic violence. As some of you may or may not know, October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And for the past, I want to say 5 years, I've had the pleasure of working with my cousin, Marq Brown, to create domestic violence awareness earrings for ladies who live in shelters. And as we were talking about that, and he placed the order at my pop-up shop that he popped up at. See what I did there? He popped up at. Anyway, he came and we just started talking about domestic violence, and I really wanted to make a platform to have this discussion. According to the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence is the willful intimidation, physical assault, battery, sexual assault, and/or other abuse behavior as part of a systemic pattern of power and control perpetrated by one intimate partner against another. Domestic violence has been around for eons. I think it's probably been around since man and woman have been on the planet Earth. And we don't talk about it enough. We don't teach our children about domestic violence. And so I wanted this opportunity to have my cousin Marq share with us today a little bit about his knowledge of domestic violence, why it's important to him that we share these stories and that we speak up about it. I have always written about it on my blog, mrsdeveter.com. You know, I got to do the plugs, y'all. So you can definitely go and check out my blog, and you can see what I've written about domestic violence in the past. But today, I am so happy to introduce to you Marq Brown, who is my cousin by marriage, but he's still my cousin. We have known each other for over 30. Okay, yeah, because me and the husband been married for 25 and we dated 5. Yeah, okay. So we've known each other for quite some time. Can you introduce yourself to the audience and tell them a little bit about your commitment and your activism as far as domestic violence is concerned?
Okay. Well, first I want to thank my cousin for having me on this platform. I really think it is important to get this information out because most people view domestic violence as something taboo. We don't talk about that. And I just always want to talk about that.
Yeah.
I started working in the shelter system back in around 91, 92. I worked at a family shelter for women and children in Brooklyn. And at the time, my only thought process about homeless was the vagrants on the street.
Right.
But when a bus pulled up and, regular people started coming off, it kind of piqued my interest to do that type of work. While I was there, I worked under a director who had a vision to open up his own facility one day. And he worked very hard to do that. And subsequently, he left the company. I stayed, but we came in contact. When I left that company, he hired me as an employment counselor. And he worked on writing RFPs, requests for proposals, for different, actually for a DV facility, anyone. I think he was awarded something like $4.8 million.
Wow.
So he opened up his first domestic violence shelter. He gave me a job there as a supervisor. And I stayed with that company for many years until I went to work for the largest victim service agency in the nation, which is called Safe Horizon.
Right.
and I worked in a very small facility, about 9 families, and it was very challenging, but it was rewarding at the same time. Many of the mothers wouldn't gravitate to me.
That was going to be one of my questions. As a man working in the domestic violence field, one, what type of training did you have to have? And two, how did you in what ways did you make yourself available to the women so that they wouldn't be afraid of you, for those who have experienced domestic violence via a man?
Well, at that time, I had taken tons of trainings. The effects of DV on children, vicarious trauma training, just to name a few, but it was just many. And so I went in that company with what I knew from my previous company. I'm thinking this is going to be a shoe-in. And just me speaking, good afternoon, the women looking at me like I had 2 heads.
Wow.
They weren't used to a male working in that facility because at that time, social services was pretty much, there were more women than
female oriented.
Yes. So I was the first male supervisor that Safe Horizon hired. So they didn't understand that. And they really wouldn't speak to me.
Wow.
And at the time, I used to have supervision with my director, and I used to present that to her, and she told me, you have to find a bridge between what you do here as supervisor and the mothers. And it was challenging in the beginning. Like I said, they wouldn't talk to me. One young lady really let me have it, wanted to know why I was speaking to her.
Wow.
How dare I speak to her? But what we found out was I resembled her abuser.
Oh, wow.
Same complexion, locks, same height. So I was a constant reminder of the abuse she went through.
Wow.
Subsequently, she left the facility. But it was just very challenging. The way I got in the door was through the children.
Through the children. In what way?
I played with them all day. They used to call me Daddy Daycare.
Aww.
I would be in the day room playing on the floor, and my director would be like, "Oh, Mr. Brown, I need that report." But I love kids, so and the kids were very innocent. We wouldn't even say the word shelter around them, so they thought this is just where they lived.
Wow.
And I lived in the building. I worked in the building where they lived.
Wow.
Some thought I lived in the building. Excuse me. So that was my end with them, just through the children. And the mothers started to see that I was not the threat. And many of them thanked me for the interaction with their children. One young lady, when she left, she wrote me a letter and said, you're the only male that my son knows.
Wow.
So that was just how I did it. And I stayed that company over a decade.
Wow.
So I have collectively 20 years in social services in the shelter system, and I have collectively 14 or 15 years working under the DV component.
Got it. So in your own words, what is domestic violence? Like I read a definition of what it is, but in your words, what is domestic violence?
I don't know how much time you have. But basically it's the power and control of another individual in an abusive manner. When many people hear domestic violence, they think a male hitting a female, a man hitting a woman. So that's just the physical aspect of it.
Right.
They don't really touch on the verbal, the psychological, the sexual, the child abuse, the other abuse like the elder abuse, the teen dating abuse, things like that. They see it on the surface as a man hitting a woman, and then they never even try to understand why it's happening. I used to always say that I understand why a man would hit a woman. I don't condone it.
Right.
But I understand it.
Okay.
Because, some men are that weak. They can't walk away. They're not educated enough to walk away. It comes from learned behavior. The father could have ruled his house that way. Grandfather could have ruled his house that way. So they think this is how you do it. But love shouldn't hurt.
Right. Say that again. Love should not hurt.
It shouldn't hurt.
Yeah.
On any level.
Yeah.
So when one person has that power and control over another in an abusive manner, that's what domestic violence is. And again, it could be same-sex relationships.
Right.
It could be whether it's male and male, male and female, or whatever. It could be parent to child. I had a young lady in my facility, and that's the reason she was there. It was her mother who was the abuser. And she didn't want the behavior to roll over to her daughter, which was the mother's granddaughter. So
Right.
she left.
Wow. So as a specialist, that's what I'm going to call you today. I'm going to call you, no, I'm not. Well, as my specialist for the day. What made you want to stay in the field? Like, what was it about domestic violence and the knowledge that you were getting that helped you to stay in the field for as long as you did?
I think unbeknownst to me, I had a conversation with one of my directors, and she said, to do great in this field, you have to have 4 things: empathy, sympathy, compassion, and understanding. And every day, I went in with that. I'm dealing with families of trauma.
Yeah.
I have to be compassionate about that, understanding, so forth and so on. You know, it's not about my baggage. It's not about my issues. You know, it's about them.
Right.
And that made me want to stay in the field because I saw the effects of the services that these agencies offered. I saw the effect that staff had on the residents and the children. You know, and it was good. One of the greatest feelings was when they walked through the door. That told me they escaped the abuse.
Right. Right.
That was one of the greatest feelings for me. For them, it was a little standoffish.
Different, yeah, of course.
You know, because they're coming in the shelter and we hear negative things about the shelter. And I will say that my facility was extremely clean because I wasn't going to work in a filthy shelter. And that's what they all mentioned. You know, it was clean. But once they built the trust with us, it was like a family there.
Wow.
And like I said, it was a small facility. Day room, like a big living room with a 50-inch TV and couches and chairs. And we had different agencies come and do things, something like around Christmas and Thanksgiving, and, you know, come do makeup. I even had some comedians come through and do a comedy show there, you know. So that was the best thing for me. Just watching them gravitate to all the services and let them work for them. Until they ultimately got their own place. They was free from the abuse. They was nowhere near the abuser.
That's dope.
That was it for me.
That's dope. Now, how can I identify domestic violence? And when I do identify it, what should I do? Is there something that I can do to help?
Well, the biggest thing is many people can't identify what DV looks like. Historically, some of us are conditioned to accept certain behavior, and we kind of diminish it. Whether it's play fighting, you know, calling you out your name, so to speak, you know, some colorful name, and you know, people say it in a joking way, "Oh, I was just playing," and that's when it should stop. Everything is not funny.
Right.
There should be no play fighting.
Right.
Men walk around with their ego. You play fight him and hit him in the eye, poke him in the eye too hard,
Right.
ego kicks in.
Right.
You know, so you have to know what the signs are. There's this thing that many women have. It's called intuition. But everybody has intuition. But even if we're just talking male to female relationship, if that woman feels something is not right, she should go with that feeling.
Right. Red flags.
Right.
They love to call them red flags.
Now,
red flags.
But I wouldn't say you get the red flag, you run. There needs to be a conversation. There needs to be some type of effective communication within that dynamic of husband and wife, boyfriend and girlfriend, whatever. People have to know how to communicate. You have to communicate to your partner, I didn't like that. Or when you did that, it made me feel this way. That person needs to be receptive of it. Now, if that person's, oh, I was only joking, it's no big thing. That's the red flag.
That's the red flag.
They don't value what you say. So you have to know what the signs are. There's tons of signs. You know, so I just gave those two, and you know, I urge people to go do the research, look up on the internet, just type in signs of domestic violence. You'd be surprised what comes up.
Wow.
So if he's checking your phone, telling you where to go, what to wear, who you can be around, who you can't be around. You know, you look for those things because everybody should be free to move about on this planet as they should.
Right.
Now, if you get dressed and he doesn't like it because that's not his taste, he should still support that.
Right.
Because you're together. And again, here's the conversation. You know, well, perhaps you might want to try this lipstick and go better with your complexion. Then that's just general conversation.
Right.
You don't have to use it, but I think it will come across more respectful that way. So those are some of the signs. It's just that when you feel that this person has a dynamic called power and control over you, things that you do, it's time to have a conversation and then possibly leave that relationship.
Right. Because it's not always a hit. It's not always a shove. It can be
the verbal.
Right. It's the verbal.
It could be the constant putting you down, never encouraging you.
Right.
It could be telling, like I said, you can't hang with that person. You're not going to see that family member.
Isolation.
Right. You stay here, I go. There's financial abuse.
Yes.
You work.
Right.
I take your money. I give you an allowance. That's just like an example.
Yeah.
Or I take all your money. And then, you know, I determine how you spend your money. You know. And it's just like so many different examples of abuse, from pet abuse, religion abuse, where he's of one faith, he's trying to get you to convert to another faith.
Right.
You should be free to have the faith that you should have.
Right.
Know?
Right.
So those are some of the signs that you want to look for, and especially when you get that feeling. But again, I want to stress this point that you may get that feeling. In my opinion, I think when you get the feeling, you have the conversation about it.
Right. And if nothing changes,
there you go.
Then you get out of Dodge or wherever you at.
Get out of Dodge.
Get out of Brooklyn, Queens, wherever you at. This is really, really good. You know that I have teenagers, and we're going to have you on Let's Chat with Leah and Deveter. But can you talk a little bit about youth domestic violence or teen domestic violence?
You know, in my opinion, in my unofficial expert opinion, I think many kids of this generation of today are influenced by the wrong things.
Yeah.
And again, I think, especially when it comes to these young men, it's their ego, and it is that peer pressure. We all dealt with peer pressure. We all folded to peer pressure, or many of us have folded to some level on different aspects, not just like an abuse type thing, but a lot of these young men, they want to do things in front of their peers to seem like they're better. And it always seems to be to a female because they already see them as lesser anyway. Society sees women as lesser. When all these women are CEOs of these top companies,
I don't get it either.
Right, you know. But these young men, they feel the need to do that in front of their peers to feel superior. They don't understand what they're doing to that young lady.
Right.
And again, it can also be same sex.
Right.
As a teen, you know, same sex dating.
And it also can be girls to boys.
Correct.
You know,
Correct.
Yeah.
Most people feel in their heart that men can't be abused.
That's not true.
But that's not true because look at the verbal aspect. There is a physical aspect. There's a psychological aspect of it. There's an emotional aspect of it. So when I was talking about the teen, I was just trying to keep it simple with the boy and the girl.
Yeah.
And I think that these young ladies need to be just as educated as these men.
Yeah.
I think if they knew the effect that they were having or imposing on these young ladies, most of them would stop. But their ego says, this is what we do.
Wow.
They want to look good in front of their friends.
Yeah.
You know?
So how do I identify any type of abuse or domestic violence, making sure that I don't have an abuser? Because I'm not a parent who's going to say, oh, not my child can't do blah, blah, blah. How do I make sure that I am not raising an abuser and that my child is not being abused?
I believe it starts with the relationship you have with your children. the open relationship you have with your children. Creating a safe space for kids to say, I got to call my moms about this. I got to call my dad about this. Even if it's the male. We often think that the young men are going to call their father, the young women are going to call their moms, and maybe their dad. Mostly young boys don't want to call their mother. There needs to be a safe space to say, you can call me as well. Call us both. And have open dialogues with no judgment. Kids are often, they will shy away from conversation because they feel like they're going to be judged.
Yeah.
So it starts with creating a safe space. Some parents don't know how to create a safe space.
What's an example of creating a safe space?
No judgment.
No judgment.
Speaking with the child and letting the child know this is a safe space. What you say here,
Right.
one, stays here in our household.
Right.
Two, I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to be yelling at you. We're going to have a conversation. I years ago, I told my son, I said, I'm giving you freedom of expression. And he was young. He said, what is that? I said, I'm allowing you to say what you need to say from your heart. Get it off your chest. Just don't be disrespectful. And that kind of helped our relationship.
Okay.
You know, we talk about everything now.
Yeah.
He's older now. So that's how you create the safe space. You have to have that dialogue and let them know you will not be judged here. You know, explain to them or let them explain to you what their perception of being judged is. Sometimes it's the facial expression that you give them while you're talking to them.
Right.
And as soon as they see you frown up, they're going to regress.
Right.
So that's how you create the safe space. No judgment, no yelling, no screaming, no cursing. Just, we're going to have a conversation.
Right.
Speak to me as you would speak with your friends. Just omit all the slang because I may
Right.
not understand it. You know.
I be trying to get my slang and they, they...
Stop.
Oh.
Because you fail it. Because when Leah talks, I'll be like... And then she looks at me like, you don't know? Cousin Pop? I'm like, okay.
Got to see it through. Got to see it through. I'm like, what? Okay.
Where did that, I love it at that. But have them speak with you in their language.
Okay.
And even if they're using the common slang, have them explain what that is so you have that better understanding. You know, you're not all in their business.
Right.
You know, don't give them that feeling because once they feel you're in their business, you're not going to get anything from it. So that's always the first of having that safe space. The second thing I would say is see what's on their mind or find out what they may know about domestic violence.
Okay.
It could be something they heard, something they saw, conversation they overheard. Just, it's a safe space. Remember, tell me what it is. Give them examples. You know, and use yourself as an example.
Okay.
Say, hey, and I don't know if this happens in your household, but say, you know, when you see me and your father arguing, how does that make you feel? You know, because kids see things differently.
Right.
You know, it could just be you guys are passionately discussing something. Voices are a little high. Kids see it totally different.
Right.
So you want to have, when you create that space, you allow them to get that off their chest. They're looking from the outside in, find out what they see.
Right.
Or how they see it.
Right. It did. Absolutely did. I think, is there anything else you wanted to share? I think those are really key points, really good stuff. Tell us a little bit about Safe Horizon and all the fundraising stuff that you do for domestic violence and how we can support and all that good stuff.
Well, just
I do my earrings and
be
what.
mindful. I don't work for Safe Horizon anymore. This was past, but I mentioned them because I learned a lot working for that. I met a lot of great people. I'm still in contact with people. I try to always give back. As an example, every Christmas there was a family, a husband and a wife that would come and answer all the Dear Santa letters for the kids. And because I'm a photographer, I would take the pictures.
Nice.
And then even though I no longer work there, every December I get that call and I go and I take the pictures. It's all free, you know, for them, whatever. And that's one of the things I do to give back. As Deveter mentioned earlier, I came up with an idea when I worked at Safe Horizon to give the mothers something. And because she crochets so very well,
Thank you.
I would purchase crocheted earrings in the color purple because that is the color of DV. And the first time I did it, my director was overwhelmed. And I just kept that trend going. Now I no longer work for, say, Verizon. I work for a city agency, but I still want to give back. So what I started last year, I was just literally just did a personal fundraiser, soliciting money to donate to a local DV shelter. Last year I raised a little bit over $1,800. Supported just friends, people donating stuff, and I wanted it to go to the shelter's child care department because I know they need a lot of things in childcare, and not just toys. They need the Pampers, they need the wipes and stuff like that in childcare. Even though most agencies get that stuff, but they can always take more.
Yeah.
Because let me segue. When a mother comes in, she may not have anything.
Right.
And shelters try to give them what they have, and the more, the merrier. But that was around when the pandemic had happened, and a lot of kids were home. They couldn't go to school. So I believe they used the money for that, to help with supply for the kids. And I don't care how they use it. I just wanted to give back and just start something. So this year I'm doing the same thing. I posted it on social media, but for some strange reason, a lot of people weren't seeing it. Kind of, it's called shadow banning, and Facebook did that to me. So everybody doesn't see it as quickly as I want them to. You would have to go on my page or whatever. But I'm still just pushing it out there and having people share it.
Okay.
My goal was to double the amount, and I want to keep doing that. So I've received some funds, but I'm not at the goal. But I do it to the end of the month.
Okay, to the end of October. So how do we give?
You can give it. It goes right through Cash App, or PayPal. I don't know if it's okay to give.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So if it's through Cash App, Cash App, you have to have the $, and the letters is WSYBKLLC. WSYBKLLC. Because it's through my company. My photography company is called Who Shot You BK, and it's the letters of that.
Got it.
LLC.
Okay.
Or PayPal at Marq Brown.
Okay.
PayPal.me/Marq Brown.
Okay. MARQ Brown.
Yes, Brown.
Right.
Not C, not K.
Right.
Like that. So hopefully I will raise enough money. I never put the name of the shelter out there. As you know, all the domestic violence shelters are confidential.
Yes.
So I really don't put the information out there. The earrings that I purchased are going to a separate shelter, one that I already have a relationship with. I'm actually going there tomorrow to meet with the director, and then present the earrings. They were overwhelmed when I told them what I was doing. And they're going to do a little raffle for the women.
Oh, nice.
I'm glad I was able to support you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I'm glad that I'm able to do this every year. I love it. Yeah. I love it.
That's pretty much what I'm doing.
That's dope. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for your wealth of knowledge and for sharing with us today. I hope that somebody got some good information, something you may not have known about domestic violence, and ways in which you can do something to help those who might be going through it, or even if you are dealing with domestic violence yourself. We have information about the hotline. So if you or someone you know is dealing with domestic violence, the hotline is...
Hotline number is 1-800-799-SAFE or 7233. You can call. It is extremely confidential. There's so many different services that they offer. You can just call to talk. If you know somebody who knows somebody.
Yeah.
You have conversations or you see things going on, try to pass on that information to that person.
Yes.
Some people are in abusive relationships and they don't know how to get out of them. They don't know the resources.
Yeah.
Just right quick, one young lady years ago, she said she was abused for 20 years.
Wow.
I said, how did you come to shelter today? She said, I was sitting at the bus stop and I saw the number go across on the bus.
Wow.
And she called it. And she left an abusive relationship.
Wow. We just never know. And it's not good enough to say, girl, you need to leave. That's not enough.
It's not that easy.
It's not that easy.
People always ask, why does she stay?
Right.
There are tons of reasons. There's a family involved. She could be scared. Because you remember, abuser has that power and control over you. And many will say, if you leave and I find you, I'm going to harm you. Some will say, if you leave, I'm going to harm myself. And they don't want that. She may not have the resources. He could be the breadwinner. Or the other partner, not just he. The other partner could be the one who's financially keeping them afloat. So when she leaves, where's she going? Some don't want to go into shelter because of the horror stories they hear of shelter. So when you ask why she's staying, those are some of the reasons she's staying. And the number one is fear. Because if he find me, it could be bad. Or for the kids. So never judge a person.
Never
second
judge.
guess.
Yeah.
You're there to listen and to help.
You
know, well, she's telling you why she's staying. Well, what can I do
to help
you? You can't be overpowering because remember, he don't want friends. You know, he see you as the nosy girlfriend, the nosy boyfriend. He don't want that because you're taking his power and control. I say, when you're ready, leave and don't look back. Another problem with leaving is you leave everything. You leave your family, you leave your friends. So the mothers that were in the shelters, when Mother's Day came around, when Christmas and Thanksgiving, they can't take the child to go see the mother because he knows where she lives. And that's dangerous. And that was hard for them. Those holidays were very hard. And unfortunately, around the festive season, which starts like October, the suicide rate went up.
Goes up. Wow.
It does. You know what I'm saying? Because they feel they have nothing. So what do we do in shelter? We give them a great Christmas. We give them a great Halloween. We do Easter egg. Like when I worked there, we did it all. And I loved Safe Horizon for that. And I'm always going to love them. And I'm not taking nothing away from the other organization that I work because they all do that type of work.
Wow, that's awesome. Thank you again. I know we could talk for hours about this, but we don't have hours because we don't want to wear you all's patience. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us today. Thank you, Marq Brown. Appreciate you. Please go and support his fundraiser. The information will be included on the post so you can get it and be able to share wherever you have. Wherever you have helps. We really appreciate it. Thank you again for hanging out with me. I am Mrs. Deveter, and I hope to see you all again very soon.
Wear purple.
See, y'all see, there's a reason I'll be doing stuff on purpose. Purple is the color of Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So put on your purple and support. Thank you, guys. Talk with you soon. Bye.